Right now, your tomorrow is today with Michael Patrick Shiels, radio stations across the state of Michigan, sometimes making news through the interviews we conduct. A little bit earlier, we were with State Senator Jim Runestad, the Republican from White Lake. He sent a letter to the Democrat Attorney General asking for an investigation to get the information about the nursing home deaths. And the governor is sort of in his gaze and under his scrutiny. He wants to know about putting people with COVID into nursing homes. Did it result in deaths? And I asked him if he is thinking that if there is an investigation, and by the way, he said he has a reasonable relationship with Dana Nessel, and if that investigation shows information that shows an increase in deaths in the nursing homes because of that decision, would the governor then be held accountable in the way Governor Snyder is being attempted to be held accountable for the deaths in the Flint water crisis? And here's what he said.
I would say that is a distinct possibility. You look at what's happening with Governor Cuomo. He is into the hot water up to his neck. And I would say that if there is wrongdoing shown, then the governor of Michigan will be very much in the same situation.
Tony Daunt, the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, State Board of Canvassers. What do you make of that response?
Well, I think in light of how things have played out over the last year now, with the governor's response to this and her insistence that, as with so much in her administration over the last 2 years since she's been elected, of it's my way or the highway, everybody else is a fool. I think, unfortunately, that she set herself up for that type of stuff. If you're unwilling to work with other people and hear other perspectives when dealing with this, and you're so insistent that what you're doing is right and just and the only thing that can and should be done, then you're going to have to live with the consequences when it's proven that what you've done may, in fact, have made things worse. And so it's kind of make your bed, now you got to lie in it type thing.
It is also dangerous, is it not, to talk about taking away a propane pipeline called the Line 5, two of them on the bottom of the Straits of Mackinac that for 60 years have provided propane to the Upper Peninsula, and shutting that down when Enbridge has offered to spend $500 million to encase those pipelines 100 feet below, safely tucked away, even though they've been safely operating for 60 years. If you're going to go and shut that down and revoke the easement, are you then also accountable for what would happen if there was a situation like there was in Texas, or simply the cost of the propane rising, or some sort of accident with the many, many trucks that would have to be transporting all that propane instead?
Yeah, and I think the primary source of accountability will be voters realizing that what she's doing, that the actions of President Biden, for instance, with the Keystone Pipeline, that they're going to realize what they're doing to the price of our energy and what it costs to heat our homes and fill our gas tanks. And it just goes to show that so much of what the left is doing related to these items, related to energy, is virtue signaling, and they're kind of in the thralls of this moral panic about so-called climate change. Now, that's not to say that there isn't some reality to the issue of climate change, but we got to look at what the cost and benefit of the solutions are. And by shutting down Line 5, by getting rid of the Keystone Pipeline, all you're doing is just changing the method with which that energy gets places. And so it puts it on rails, it puts it on trucks. We have more vehicles on the road carrying, what would be considered, what these Democrats are considering dangerous to the Straits of Mackinac. Well, now it's just in vehicles and beating up our roads on top of it. And so folks are going to realize that when their prices start to skyrocket, when we run out of energy, there will be political consequences for that. So hopefully they'll realize before then, these leaders will realize before then, that what they're doing is foolish.
People are very sensitive these days. I noticed on the NBC affiliate in the Capitol that people are upset. Some kids, they get a hybrid learning model. They can go to school some days, and the other days they have to stay home. But teachers' kids can go all the time. That seems like a reasonable thing, since the teacher has to go to work and the student might as well be with the teacher. I mean, but people are sensitive about it. They don't like the unfairness of it, I guess.
Well, my daughter has, at DeWitt Public Schools, they've been really very great at trying to figure out how to do this, and so she's been half day every day since after Christmas break, and now next week they start going every day, all day, and they've been very dedicated to get kids back in the classroom as quickly as they can and as safely as they can, and the teachers and administration in that school system have been doing wonderful work to make sure that the kids are still learning throughout this difficult past year. And, they're a model. And I would hope that all teachers and all union leaders would use them as a model. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that in many school systems throughout the state.
And the other thing that's got me sort of in a bit of a, I don't know, I just don't like the sound of it these days, is the secrecy around how you get your vaccine and who gets your vaccine and when can you get it, and are there secret places you can get it if you're younger. And have you asked people, they get the vaccine, you say, well, how did you get it? Well, I went here, I went there, I had some influence, what have you. What do you think about the unfairness of all that, seeming unfairness?
Well, I think it's foolish. They had a huge debate in the state Senate last week about what the formula should be for getting the vaccine to different parts of the state, and the fact that it's controversial that it should be going to areas just based on the number of folks in your population that are vulnerable by age. It's ridiculous. Those are the people who are most at risk. Those are the people who we should be prioritizing so that we can get jabs in their arms, get them protected, and then work our way back from the most vulnerable. It's common sense. It's foolish that people think it should be otherwise. People like Governor Whitmer and apparently the Democrats in the state Senate.
From the front lines of Freedom Newsletter, the Michigan Freedom Fund, he's Tony Daunt. Google it up and get that delivered every Friday in your email box.